Bueno, comencemos entonces. Primero voy a presentar yo a algunos, quizás ya me conocen, de que estuve en los canales de Discord, estuvimos haciendo la demo junto con Turi, Arturo, hace un par de semanas en un community call. Yo soy Matías, PM de Scout, me acompaña acá Turi, Dev Relations, Vale, que es nuestra Business Representative, y estamos también con Dave, que es el Technical Lead de Scout. Así que la verdad que nos alegra muchísimo empezar ahora con esta serie de workshops donde la idea es que ustedes empiecen a usar la tool, nos den feedback. Ya hace algunos meses que estamos desarrollando la herramienta, entonces, bueno, creemos que ahora es el momento de empezar a escalar y sobre todo empezar a obtener feedback de todos ustedes para que también de alguna forma nos ayuden a construir la tool que todos, es decir, algo que sepamos que es realmente útil para los desarrolladores de Zorba en este caso. Así que bueno, Turi va a estar llevando adelante el workshop, donde vamos a arrancar viendo un poco la instalación, cuáles son las features de la tool, y después vamos a trabajar sobre algunos ejemplos concretos. La idea es que al final también les vamos a compartir un formulario para que nos den feedback, pueden sugerir mejoras, features nuevas, e incluso, como dijimos al principio, podemos agendar otras sesiones con ustedes, más privadas si se quiere, para, bueno, asistirlos con la corrida de la tool sobre algún proyecto, o incluso para que trabajemos sobre propuestas concretas de ustedes sobre features. Así que, nada, creemos que este va a ser un proceso súper enriquecedor para la tool y para toda la comunidad. Así que, nada, estamos realmente muy contentos. Así que, Turi, cuando quieras, todo tuyo.
Bueno, chicos, muchas gracias. Entonces empezamos con el workshop directamente. Bueno, voy a compartir pantalla y para empezar lo que les pido es, si pueden, vayan al repositorio nuestro de github.com, o perdón, acá estoy en otro, voy a volver al anterior, github.com slash coinfabric slash scout workshop, ¿ok? Ese es el repositorio donde vamos a estar trabajando. Bien, en este repositorio está todo el material que vamos a usar en este workshop, están los ejemplos con los que vamos a trabajar y también una guía paso por paso que vamos a ir siguiendo. En este workshop, como dijo Mati, vamos a hacer primero una intro con instalación de la tool. Después, mientras ustedes instalan la tool, vamos a hacer un overview de lo que es Scout y las features y beneficios que ofrece. Y terminado eso, bueno, vamos a ver cómo ejecutar la tool, cómo interpretar los resultados, ver ejemplos de uso de Scout tanto en la línea de comandos como en VS Code con ejemplos prácticos, y ver por último cómo setear lo que llamamos el Scout Action en GitHub para proyectos que tengan en GitHub, ¿ok? Así que antes de dar una intro como más general de la tool, lo que les quería pedir es si pueden empezar con la parte de instalación. Para instalar Scout van a tener que tener instalado Cargo en sus computadoras. Acá, bueno, espero que lo tenga instalado, es lo que tienen que tener para desarrollar con Rust. Y después hay que hacer estos 5 simples pasos para poder instalar la tool. Lo primero es instalar esta versión de Nightly y setearla como default. Y después hay que agregar el componente de Rust C y estas dependencias adicionales que tenemos que son Dylint, Dylint Link y mdbook. Una vez que hacen esos 4 pasos, ya pueden instalar Scout con cargo install, cargo Scout Audit. ¿No? Eso
Turi,
por el lado de la CLI. Sí.
Turi, perdón que te interrumpa, pero veo que se nos unió alguien más y,
Ok.
y quizás tenemos que pasar al inglés.
Bien.
Okay.
Hello, Seven. Are you there? No, como para...
I'm just checking if we need to switch to English or Spanish because all the previous attendees were Spanish speaking, so I wanted to check that with you.
Yeah, or maybe we can do kind of like a mix, because maybe I believe Federico might be like better for him to make this in Spanish. But Block 7, I'm guessing you don't speak Spanish, right? Just to be sure.
No, I speak African English.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, let's go for English then.
Okay, I can speak in both languages. I'm going to continue the workshop in English, but if any of the other Spanish-speaking guys need some details on what we're doing, we can translate on the chat. All right. So I'm going to
I'm sharing the
continue in
link.
English.
on the in-call messages again for you, Block 7, that you arrived a bit later. That is the page that we are seeing on the screen.
Okay, checking it
Okay.
now.
Right.
Okay. All right. So this is the workshop GitHub on which we're working. Please enter this website. I'm not sure if you have access to it. Let me share it back with you again. There I see that Valeria just shared it. So in this workshop, we're going to do an overview of the tool and how to use it. First, I wanted to ask you to please install the tool so that later we can work on some samples together. In order to do this, you just need to go over these simple steps that we offer in the GitHub. They're right here for the command line interface. And for the VS Code extension, you can simply navigate to the extension part in your VS Code right here. And you will need to install a Rust Analyzer first. That's the first one that you need to install. Also, you will need to install, after installing the command line interface, you will need to install Scout Audit, which is our extension. And finally, in order to see all the squiggles that you will see here when we use Scout, you also need to install Error Lens, which is this one here. All this information is in the repo, so you can follow the installation as I continue talking about the tool in our demo. Okay. So as you move on with that, I'm going to move on with a quick overview of the tool and the different features that we offer. Okay. So let me share this. All right. Perfect. So here we're showing a Scout Bug Fighter. It's a workshop on our bug detection tool for Soroban smart contracts. So why Scout? In 2023 alone, over $1.8 billion have been lost due to hacks and scams in the crypto ecosystem. And the current solution to this issue are manual audits. They are the prevalent solution in the ecosystem. But the problem with audits is that they're very time-consuming and very expensive. And we know as auditors ourselves that many projects reach their first audit carrying from development issues that they could have solved if they knew a little bit about the issues and the security problems as they developed. This is why we developed Scout, a bug detection tool that is intended to assist developers and auditors during development. It detects potential vulnerabilities and best practices deviations in the code in different parts of the secure development lifecycle. Okay. So as we developed Scout, we thought, what features do we need to develop in order to make this security companion available to developers as they code in every step of the development process? So as we started working, we first developed a CLI, command line interface that allows you to run the tool on a particular smart contract and to get an output on the terminal. Then we decided to add a VS Code extension that would allow developers to identify vulnerabilities as they code. And finally, the last feature that we added is a GitHub action that allows you to incorporate Scout into your pull request in GitHub, so that whenever someone in your team is doing a new pull request, a security review is available for the rest of the team there as a comment in the pull request. Okay. So these are the main features that we're going to overview in this workshop. So what has been the roadmap that brought us here? We've been working on Scout for Soroban since early 2024. During the first quarter, we focused on developing the proof of concept and the prototype, researching different issues, security and best practices issues in the Soroban ecosystem, building our first set of detectors, and implementing the command line tool and VS Code extension. As we moved into the second quarter, we added additional detectors, and we also started trying the tool on real-world projects. We tried it on open source Soroban projects that were available from the community, but we also developed a set of Soroban examples, which we call Scout Soroban examples, in order to assess what was the experience of the user while developing with Scout. Okay. we also performed a security review of this contract in order to assess also the rate of false positives of our tool with them. Furthermore, for this MVP that we just developed in the last quarter, we also introduced a Scout GitHub Action. There is the CI/CD integration option and additional output options, including an HTML report that we will be using in this workshop. That makes it easier for an outsider maybe of the team to review the output and to assess what changes are being made, okay? So this was the first semester. In quarter 3, we're focusing on the user, and we believe in user-driven innovation. So this is why we focused our new milestone into bringing education to the user and gathering user feedback in order to improve the tool. And we're doing this through Scout workshops, video tutorials, additional detectors, and usability improvements. We also add to this user-driven innovation initiative the possibility to do with us one-to-one sessions where we teach you how to use the tool on your particular project and help you solve particular installation issues that you may have, okay? So we were very happy to be part of this ecosystem in Soroban, and with our experience in audits and over 350 projects in crypto, we know the pains of development, and we know why it is important for projects to incorporate security best practices as they develop. This is why we're bringing Scout, and we hope that this workshop can help other members of the community to incorporate this knowledge into their workflows. Okay. All right. So that's a quick intro of what the project is about. I was wondering, has everyone been able to install the tool successfully? Did you have any issues there? I'm not sure if you wrote any comments. Yeah. Everyone's okay? Can you give me thumbs up?
Feel free, guys, to interrupt us if you have any. Okay.
Excellent. Very well. Good. So I'm going to move on to how to use the tool. Perfect. So in order to use the tool, it's very simple. You just need to navigate to the contract folder, go inside that folder, and you can run Cargo Scout Audit. So if you want to do it with me, you can navigate to the folder examples, example 1. You will have to clone this rib, of course, and move into the examples folder. And there you can open terminal. Here I'm using Windows, so I'm using WSL. And in order to run it on example 1, well, first notice that here I'm at the wrong folder. You actually need to move to the folder where you have the Cargo TOML. So make sure that you're there. Currently, we don't offer workspace supports, but we'll be offering that probably next week. We'll be doing a release where you will be able to run Scout on the whole whole project root directory and see all the outputs. For the time being, you need to run Scout on the particular folder where you have the smart contract. Okay, so navigate to that folder and run Scout by running Cargo Scout Audit. So it might take a while in your case, but hopefully this will run pretty fast. And it will output the different warnings available for this particular project that we're scanning, okay? So in order to run the tool, Cargo Scout Audit. You can also generate an HTML report using the different output options available for Scout. In order to do it, you do also Cargo Scout Audit --output-format HTML. I will run this in advance so that later we can also work with that. And what it will do is it will generate an HTML report where you can see all the different issues, same ones as we saw here, but it's neater. And you can also go to a particular issue, read more about it, and go to our documentation page to understand better what the issue is about. All right. So that's a quick overview. We'll come back to this issue when we analyze the examples. That's how you run Scout. And in order to execute the VS Code extension, all you need to do is the same thing. You just navigate to the to the folder containing the Cargo TOML, and you open VS Code extension from this folder. don't do it from the root folder in case that you have many contracts, because it's not going to work yet. We're working on this feature for next week, but for the time being, open it on the particular folder where you're at. Okay, so where the smart contract is. Sorry. All right. So without further introduction, let's move on into the two examples that we have here. Have you all been able to clone the repo successfully? If you did, please open the first example, and again run Cargo Scout audit on it so we can analyze the results. Okay. Has any one of you had any issues running the tool? Can I assist you with anything there? If not, please give me thumbs up so we move on. Good, thank you. All right, so let's keep going. So before digging into the different issues that are popping up, let me so let's take a look at the example all of us together. I'm going to open it with Sublime Text because at first I want you to use the command line interface and then the VS Code extension. So as we can see here, we have a very simple contract. This contract consists of one function, and this function, what it does, it splits a profit. Okay. Here we receive a percentage, which is an integer of 32 bits, and a total profit, also an integer of 32 bits. And what the function does, it divides the integer by 100 before multiplying it by total profit. Okay. So please take, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute to read over this function and to read over the output that we see here in Scout. Something that I do want to clarify first, that I think that it went over, is the output basically consists of three different highlights. One will be the warning, giving you a short description of the issue. Then in the middle, you have an indication of where, in which lines of code the issue is popping up. Then you have a brief recommendation on how to remediate the issue. And finally, you have a note on the detector that is being highlighted, and indicating that by default this detector is set to on. Okay. If you want to learn more on how to turn on and off detectors, because maybe on your particular project a detector is popping up and it's always a false positive, please go to our profile configuration section in our documentation, where you will be able to see how to do that. Okay. So this is how to interpret the warning. You have a short description, how to remediate the issue, and the detector being triggered. Okay, so without further introduction, please take a look at the contract, see if you can understand what it does, and take a quick look, take maybe 30 seconds to a minute to analyze the different warnings that are appearing here in our contract and what it does. Okay, I will come back to you. Yeah. So I will stop sharing, and I will give you, yes, like a minute so you can work with it, and then I will come back. Meanwhile, if you have any questions that you want answered, please write them down and we can also get to them.
Turi, perhaps in the meantime we could do a catch up in Spanish, just in case.
Perfecto. Bueno, para los que están, los que vienen de países que hablan de habla hispana, ¿tienen alguna consulta sobre la instalación en la cual los pueda ayudar? Se entendió básicamente el concepto básico del contrato. Es un contrato que recibe un número y un total y una ganancia total, y hace la multiplicación para producir, bueno, qué porcentaje de esa ganancia tiene que repartirse, ¿no? Sí. Avísame cualquier cosa si eso no se entendió. ¿Ok? Bien. Bueno, un tiempito para que puedan avanzar. Y sigo. Bien, entonces volvamos un segundo al warning. Bien. Bueno. Por alguna razón, acá me está apareciendo un warning de una versión anterior del ejemplo que les había subido, pero ustedes deberían sorry, so
Let's switch back to English. Yeah.
yes, switching back to English, sorry, because I switched and I forgot to come back. So in your example, you should only see these two warnings, not this one on top. For some reason, I'm using an old version of the example and this one is popping up, but just focus on these two. Have you been able to take a look at the issues? And do you have any sort of idea of what they do? If any one of you understands or has an idea of how to solve these issues, please raise your hand. And if you want to give us a comment, you can do it. Does anyone want to comment what these issues are about? All right, I will keep talking if not. So focusing on these two issues here, we see two issues. One is about the latest Sora version being used. Of course, we have a detector that identifies whether you're using the latest Sora version or not, and it recommends you to use it on your project if possible, of course. This is something that in order to do it, you just need to come here and you need to open your Cargo TOML and update the version of your of the Sorban SDK that you're using. Okay, so that's on one side, and then the other issue that I wanted to go over is this one over here that it says division before multiplication might result in loss of precision. Okay, and it tells us that it's occurring in line 10, and it involves basically the only important line in this smart contract, which is the division of percentage by 100. Okay. And what this detector tells us is consider reversing the order of operations to reduce the loss of precision. So let's go back to our code and think about that. So here we have a percentage, which is a number. It could be 1, it could be 99, 100, or even higher. It is an integer. So what happens when here we divide this integer by 100? What happens is that an integer division takes place. So if we put a number between 1 and 99, this division truncates to 0. So no matter what profit we're trying to split here, the result will always be 0. Okay? So this is a common issue of integer arithmetic that needs to be handled. But maybe you don't want or you can't use a floating point number up here. So there is this method which is called applying multiplication before division that sort of remediates this issue. I will talk later about a particular scenario where that can also lead to an overflow. But first, let's assume that no overflow is occurring or happens here. So how can we fix this? If we change the order of operations and we perform the division after the multiplication, then what happens is that if you introduce a low number, for example, 1, and you multiply it by a total profit that may be large, like, I don't know, 1 million, when you divide by 100, the result is not truncated to 0 because you're reversing your order of operations and you're allowing for the division to take place later. The benefit of this is that it is the same operation in a different order, but gives you a different result. In other scenarios where the result is not truncated to 0, usually performing this order of operations has the benefit of improving the precision of the operation that you're doing. Okay, so let me save this and run Scout again. What we should see is that, actually, let me run Scout. I can run it on the command line or the HTML report, whichever of them two. Well, as we can see here in the HTML report, only the Sora version issue is popping up. And here, if I do cargo Scout audit, I should only see the Sora version issue popping up again. All right. So this is a quick example of how to run Scout on your project with the command line interface, either with the command line interface or the HTML output, read the results, perform a change in the code, and run it again in order to evaluate that the change has been successful. Okay. Any questions on the methodology or any doubts on this particular fix that you may have? Please raise your hand or talk if you want. Yeah. All right. Something that I want to add here is that whenever you do multiplication before division, you need to be very careful that you're not exceeding the storage size of the number that you're giving as an output. Okay. In this case, if we were to multiply two very large numbers, like I don't know, let's say that the total profit is the GDP of Germany, like $4.5 trillion, for example, and we are giving here a percentage of 99. Well, this could produce an overflow here, for example. So it is important to always consider the possibility of an overflow when you're performing multiplication before division. And it is important to notice that depending on whether you're on debug mode or release mode in GitHub, the overflow checks available in the cargo toml catch or do not catch the overflows. So that's why it's important to also take that into account in an example like this one. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's move on to the next example. In the next example, or for the next example, I want you to open the example 2 in VS Code. Okay, it will take a while to open because Scout depends on Rust Analyzer to run. So you have to open it on VS Code, wait for it a few seconds for it to run, and then when Rust Analyzer has finished, you will be able to see the outputs of Scout as I have here. Okay, so please take a few seconds to open Scout, and meanwhile I will give a short explanation of what this issue does. Let me open a little bit. Okay. So here we have a smart contract that what it does basically is it implements a voting system for a number of candidates. Okay, as we can see, we have a state. Here we will focus on the candidates that are available in a vector, the number of votes per candidate, and whether an address has already voted. Okay, and then well, we have different functions. We have a function to initialize the contract, one to our candidate, and other functions below. But for this demo, we'll be focusing on the add candidate function. As you can see, this function receives a candidate address and a caller address. The caller is the person that is voting. That actually the caller is the person that is adding the candidate to the smart contract. And let's take a look at the function to understand what it does. First, the function gets the contract state. Then it determines whether or not the voting session has ended, accessing the vote ended attribute of the state struct, which is here. Then, sorry, in case that the vote has already ended, using this vote ended function, it returns an error indicating that the voting session has already ended and the caller can't vote. Okay. If the voting session has not ended, we first determine we first check whether the voter has already voted. Okay. If the voter has not already voted, what we do is we add the candidate to our vectors, to our candidate's vector, and we set its number of votes to 0. Okay. So that's it, basically what it does. Notice that here we're using a vector to store the candidates that have been added, and we have a map, not a mapping, but a map for votes in this for adding the number of votes for each candidate. Okay, so take a few seconds, up to a minute, to read mostly this function of the contract, and also take a look at the different warnings that are popping up here to see if you can understand what they're saying. In order to visualize the whole warning, you can hover over the section of code where it is coming up, and you can click here on click for full compiler diagnostic in order to see the same type of snippet that pops up when you perform the Scout execution with the command line interface. Okay. So yes, take up to a minute to go over the add candidate function and the different issues raised, and to analyze if you understand what they're doing and how to fix it. Okay, I will stop sharing for a while to give you time for that. Mientras tanto, vuelvo para español. ¿Hay alguna parte que no se has entendido de la forma general del contrato? ¿O más o menos se entiende que es un sistema de votación? ¿Los puedo ayudar con alguna parte de eso o para correr la extensión de VS Code? De vuelta, si está todo bien, póngame dedos para arriba y eso está bueno. Buenísimo. Lo voy a dejar un poquito más de tiempo porque este es un poco más complicado. I'm checking my notes. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a few moments to think about the issue. Let me share screen again and let's go over it, all of us together. Great. So here we have an add candidate function, and we see that different issues are popping up. Let's go one by one, and in order to check what is going on. Something that I like about using the VS Code extension is that you can actually identify the different issues associated to a particular part of the code, which can be a little bit hard to do here, at least with the command line interface. Maybe it's a little bit easier with the HTML output option, okay? But here in the VS Code extension, you can see, okay, for this particular part of code, for this function, I have these issues popping up. So let's go over the first one. So the first one says, not checking for a zero address could lead to an insecure contract. This function should check if the account ID passed is 0 and revert if it is. Okay. So what is this issue telling us? What this issue is telling us is that in many contracts, if you allow the user to set an attribute of the smart contract to the zero variable, to the zero address, if that attribute somehow has control of other functions inside of the smart contract, you could potentially be locking those functions away forever. Because imagine giving authorization for a user to control a smart contract. If you set that to a zero address, then no one is going to be able to have access to a smart contract because the zero address, no one is having access to it. So it is important to always pay attention to what addresses are we setting as attributes inside of our smart contract, and to make sure that we're not setting a zero address or a test address that we will not have control of later on. Okay. Now, in this particular example, I think that maybe introducing, for example, a candidate as a zero address could be something that the user wants to do. What if you're voting for candidates and you're very unhappy of the available candidates and you want to vote to give a blank vote? Well, maybe introducing the zero address here would be a neat way of doing it. So for this particular case, I think we could rule out this as a false positive, okay? And not pay attention to it, and it's not necessary to make any changes in the code, all right? Okay, now let's move on to the other two issues popping up. So the second one tells us that we're performing a vector operation that is being performed without access control, okay? Why is this potentially a problem? Well, vectors are structures which have a limited storage in Soroban and in many other smart contract languages. The issue with them is that since they have limited storage, you can potentially saturate the total storage used by the vector by adding new candidates one after another. If an attacker decides to add a very large number of candidates into the vector, he could prevent other users from adding new ones, performing basically a denial of service for other users. The same thing, we see that the same thing happens with this other warning popping up that is telling us that a mapping operation is being called without access control. Notice that here we have a vector for candidates and a map, not a mapping in the classical sense for votes. both of these structures have the same type of storage limitations. They basically, what happens is that if you have too many entries to these structures, you can saturate the storage available and prevent other users from interacting with the contract. Okay, so let's think, how can we solve these issues that we have here? So for simplicity, I have here some of the example that I'm going to go to. So I'm going to open Bash Codot. So remember, I am opening I'm opening the VS Code extension on the smart contract because we currently don't have workspace support. Next week we will be offering that, so you will probably be able to run Scout on the whole project at once. So if we move here, it will take a while for Rust Analyzer to run. Here I have a different implementation of this of this add candidate function, and let's take a quick look at it to see how we solve this problem of the storage limitations with vector and with map. Okay, so the idea here is that instead of using a structure that has limited storage, we can use a structure that is a true mapping, that is basically a dictionary that allows you to add new pieces of information one key at a time. All right, instead of the vector, which basically when you load it into memory, it loads the whole structure. Using this type of structure, a mapping or a dictionary, simply loads the piece of information for every key that you're accessing. So it is much more efficient in memory usage, and it prevents this type of memory saturation and complete usage that you have with vectors. So here what we're doing is, instead of using the vector, in the moment where we want to add a new candidate, we use this data key structure and candidate structure that I'm showing here. So let me go to the top to understand what changes have been made. So in our previous code, what we had is we had candidates as a vector, votes as a vector, and whether or not an address had already voted. Okay, we basically replaced this with this structure enum implementation over here. So for each candidate, we're going to create a structure which is going to store the number of votes it has. And then we implement this mapping, this dictionary structure, by adding an enum, a data key enum, which stores the state, whether an address has already voted, and the candidate that each address has voted. Okay, no, sorry, and the candidate for each address of a candidate. Okay, when you enter a candidate, you're able to access how many votes it has. Now, in our example, this produces two changes. In order to set the new candidate, we need to use the data key to insert the candidate's address, and we also need to initialize this candidate with 0 votes. Once this is done, what we do is we update the whole state of the data key in this part over here, making sure that the total number of candidates is increased by 1. Okay, so notice that this implementation, as you have noticed, Rust Analyzer has already finished running, and this implementation solves the issues that were being revealed by Scout. Okay, this is one of many examples of how Scout can help you solve problems as you code with the VS Code extension. And of course, in case that you are not sure whether or not a particular issue can derive in a possible vulnerability or not, you can always run the HTML report, which is more extensive, and go to the particular piece of documentation that you need to understand better. In our documentation website, we have documentation for each of the different detectors that we have, and also for the vulnerability classes that are being detected. Okay, so that's a quick overview of how to use the VS Code extension. Were you able to execute it yourself on your projects, or did you have any errors that you need assistance with? Okay, please let us know if you have any issues. If you happen to have any issues but don't want to talk about them here, you can also request a one-on-one session afterwards so we can help you as well. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
I'll drop any comments on the chat and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So let's start wrapping up the workshop. The last topic that we want to go over is the CI/CD integration that we offer for Scout, which is called Scout Action. Okay. So let's take a look at it. The Scout Action basically is it's a GitHub action that runs Scout on the background and allows you to run Scout on every push or on every pull request that you perform to your repo. Basically, what needs to be done is you need to so let me come here to my fork repository. I have just forked a Scout workshop, and the only thing that I need to do in order to run the action is I will need to copy this template that we have here. Notice that you can put a different name to the process being run, and also here to the job that you're executing. You can also establish here whether you want the action to be run on every pull request or on every push. And the only important part really is to set on which smart contract you want the Scout process to be run. Okay. What is going to happen is once you set this up, you will be able to see a Markdown report very similar to the HTML report, but it pops up as a comment in your pull request in Markdown, of course. So let's work with this example and let's see how to set it up. So as it says here, I'm going to create a file within the directory GitHub/workflows, and I'm going to call it Scout.yml. So let me do that. So here, well, first, let me be more organized. I'm going to make a new branch. Yeah, let's do it here. Oops, no, sorry. So let me do a test Scout action. So let's say I'm working on a particular issue that I want to solve. I switch to that branch. And what I'm going to do is I am going to add a new file here, which I'm going to call it .github/workflows. Very well. And then I'm going to call it Scout.yml. I'm going to copy and paste this template that I have here. And the only part that I'm going to modify is which is the address of the example that I want to be analyzed. In this particular case, let's say that we want to analyze example 1. So I have to go to a folder examples, example 1. Okay. So here I'm going to add that examples, example 1. In that should work. I'm going to save this. Okay. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pull request. I'll make sure to make it to my personal repo. Okay, so this will take a while, but as you can see, Scout is running on the background. Okay, it's running on the background. It will take a while, but it will produce here a comment with the result of the action. Okay. I'm not sure, Matti, if you have already run this on the background in your computer. Could you please share that so we can see how the output looks?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Something that I like about doing it here in the action is that this is something that maybe you can do and you can leave it at night. So this opens the possibility to integrate other detection techniques into this action, which are maybe heavier than static analysis, which we're using. Okay, so it's a neat property of using GitHub Actions. I'm not sure, Matt, if you're able to share that. I will stop
Yes,
sharing.
I am sharing it. As Turi said, here you can see a comment on the pull request with the report of the issues found by Scout.
So
Actually,
something cool
if-
is that so something cool about this report is that you can also modify the markdown file and check whether that particular vulnerability is a false positive or something that has been acknowledged by the development team or resolved. That way, witin the comment section of your PR, you can perform the security review and then move on once those security issues have been solved. Okay, perfect. So that's the end of the workshop pretty much. I hope that it has been useful. If you want, you can give it a try on your own forked repo of this GitHub link that we shared, and let us know if you have any issues doing the building the GitHub action. We're also going to share with you a short form for where you can give us feedback about this workshop, and also where you can share any questions that you have or suggestions for improvement on the tool. It is very useful for us to have your feedback, because that way we can improve the tool and adapt it to your user needs. Okay. So thank you very much for coming, and whatever questions you have, I'm going to stay here for a few minutes so I can answer them. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, as Turi said, thanks a lot for coming. We think that the most important thing now is for you guys to try Scout. As Turi said, we will going to send you a form with a few questions for you to answer, or to give us your feedback on both this workshop and Scout. And well, again, try it, play with it. We are here to hear all your feedback. That's of great value for us and for you as developers, obviously.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that we are also offering one-on-one sessions. If you would like to, just to understand the issues that, or like the feedback that Scout provides. So if you had any issues running the tool, or any comments, or would just like us to take a look at it, we're happy to do that. Okay.
Okay. If you have any questions.
Gonzalo.
Yeah,
Okay.
if not,
Yeah, I know it's really hard to speak in this kind of call sometimes.
no.
Everybody gets like super shy. So, but feel completely free to reach out to us. We're here to help you and to help you using the tool. That's our main goal. So yeah, let's stay in touch.
Thank you,
And
guys.
there will be other workshops like this. So if you happen to know anyone who could be interested in it, we will be also promoting them on Discord. And feel free to invite any colleagues of yours. We will be happy to help them and to have them here.
And to have you here is back. Yes,
Yes.
Matthias, this is being recorded. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bueno.